On September 27, 2020, a full-scale war erupted between Armenia and Azerbaijan over the disputed Nagorno-Karabakh region. While the members of the international community were trying to position themselves under informational skirmish between Armenia and Azerbaijan, Ankara has announced about one nation, two countries approach in all aspects between Turkey and Baku. From the very beginning of the war, Turkey's position was very open and supportive towards Azerbaijan, which played a huge role in escalating the conflict and war. Moreover, Azerbaijan will never come to a military solution if not backed by Turkey, because South Caucasus has always been considered as the territory of Russian interest, and Armenia is its only ally in the region, hosting the only Russian military base in South Caucasus. Hence, Turkey's support to Baku balanced the Russian influence. It was not apparent why Ankara urged the war with its provocative announcements until Turkish F-16 jet fighters were seen in Ganja airport, Azerbaijan, proving the open military support of NATO member country to Baku. Moreover, Ankara was acting as a terrorist hub, sending mercenaries and terrorists from Syria to Baku, actually repeating its successful experience in Libya and Syria. In this regard, national security services of the USA, Russia and France have expressed concerns on all diplomatic levels. Despite international community calls to stop third country interventions in the conflict, Ankara has continued violation of the international law. Providing full military and diplomatic support to Azerbaijan, Turkey actually evolves as the decision maker in Baku, or at least obtains immense leverage, and it is not just a matter of one country, two nations approach, but rather an outcome of deep geopolitics, that having Baku under full control, Erdogan receives multi-vector benefits and more place to maneuver, obtaining deeper influence not only on the regional aspects, but also in broader range. The importance and geopolitics of the region might be really beneficial for Turkey, and the key to it is in Baku. Having Azerbaijan under control, Turkey mainly considers the following aspects. Firstly, Baku is an energy alternative for the European Union, and since the relations of the EU with Russia and Iran face crisis, cooperation on energy sector between the European Union and Baku faced unprecedented development. Although Russia imports gas from Azerbaijan to weaken bilateral energy aptitudes of Brussels and Baku and letting less space for the Azeri market, Turkish influence now will vanish all Kremlin's efforts, because for the enormous military and diplomatic support in the battlefield, Aliyev should pay now with pro-Turkish energy policy and strategy. With that said, no decision will be made without Erdogan's acceptance. Secondly, despite being a corridor to the European Union for energy pipelines and an economic hub, Turkey will now receive another source of influence in the face of Azerbaijan to manipulate disputes and relations with the European Union, and not only. As the latter developed Trans-Caspian pipeline to connect Turkmenistan with Baku, after war reality in the region will outplay some calculations. We all remember how Ukraine refused to execute its gas transit obligations. So the same might happen with Turkey if a likewise crisis hit Ankara. In this regard, relying on gas transit from Turkey and Baku is not a secure alternative for the European Union. Thirdly, Caucasus is a very important infrastructure hub, connecting the east to the west, and since Chinese BRI project is booming, losing the Caucasus to Russia and Turkey will not benefit the European Union in the long term. As an alternative, deeper cooperation with Armenia and Iran might balance the situation for the European Union. Brussels will have a reliable energy road from East Asia to Iran and to the Black Sea, connecting the east to the west on a more solid reality, which in the case of Turkey and Azerbaijan is beyond any consideration, as the latest history has shown. It will be difficult for the European Union to build trade and trust with Turkey when the latter goes for aggressive foreign policy and continuously confronts with neighbors. Moreover, Armenia has already announced its readiness to transit energy supplies from Middle East and Asia. Despite the different views between Russia and the European Union, Trans-Caspian pipeline will serve as an alternative to minimize the European energy dependence on Russia. But is it better enough to rely on? This pipeline, crossing the Caspian Sea and many countries, diversifies the political influence and scope on it. Hence, the dependence on many countries complicates reaching consensus in case of a crisis. Moreover, considering the democratic values and their reality in transferring countries, such as human rights, both in Azerbaijan and Turkey, the fact that Turkey had 31 conflicts in the last 10 years with 9 countries, how high is the probability that the European values will outweigh the economic interests? During the war in Nagorno-Karabakh, the European Union was extremely neutral because of the dependence from energy suppliers. The consequences of the European silence towards the combined war backed with terrorists and mercenaries against Armenia will reveal much more than what is already obvious nowadays. As such are the recent Islamic attacks inside the European Union, particularly in Austria, France. These are clear examples, but is the European Union capable of excluding repetition in the future? Or how hard the European Union is ready to defend its values, being between difficulties of energy suppliers and security threats? How about Turkey's intervention in Greece's exclusive economic zone, where Erdogan is digging in the search of gas and oil, violating the international law of seas? Why the European Union is struggling to import gas from 1,000 kilometers away when Greece can actually export it from Mediterranean Sea? Although the volume of gas resources there is yet unknown, but it is a fact that it can be used and be another source to diversify gas supplies. The linkage of the war in Nagorno-Karabakh and Turkey's intervention into Greece's exclusive economic zone has something in common. In both cases, the European Union refuses to act and defend its interests with something more than sanctioning Turkey's agricultural industry. European Union energy security is highly sensitive to foreign interventions and political vacuums, as seen in Armenia's case. Hence, a more strict and direct approach is vital for the future. Standing on diplomatic neutrality is nowadays a no-go, especially for Brussels. The energy sector and its imports needs to be diversified and mainly through alternative sources. Diversified sources of energy supplies are one of the key elements for a more secure energy sector. In this case, further cooperation with Iran, despite the US sanctions regime, might balance the powers in the region for the European Union. With Chinese economic possibilities, the European Union might no longer be afraid to weaken its presence in the US market. Meanwhile, more aggressive development and investments into renewable energy should be an ad hoc policy and goal for the European Union. Member states not always strictly consider their own interests and go already towards collective security policy, even if the consequences might not be the best for some, especially in East European member countries where economies are highly sensitive to political or economic magnitudes.